Okay. Welcome, everyone. I now call to order the special joint meeting of the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency and Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agent meeting of December 12th, 2024. We'll begin with the invocation by Director Meeks and led by the Pledge of Allegiance by Director Otto. So please rise.
Dear Lord, thank you for this time of year where we can all come together and share in your spirit and your joy, and bring our families and our friends together to rejoice in you. Today, please give us the wisdom to make good choices for our transportation users and the public at large. We look forward to serving you in the coming year and serving the community. Amen.
Amen.
Please place your hands over your heart. Veterans may salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that. And now, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Heft,
Here.
Director Connors, Alternate Frost.
Here.
Director Grant. Director Hurt.
Here.
Director Otto.
Here.
Director Stevens. Director Beal.
Here.
Director Bilodeau.
Present.
Alternate Jabbar.
Here.
Director Frost.
Here.
Alternate Juan. Director Meeks. Director Schnell. Director Voits.
Here.
Chair Taylor.
Here.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Here.
Vice Chair Panaloza. Alternate Annis.
Here.
Director Khan. Here. Director Wagner. Director Zhao. Mr. Chair, we have quorum on both boards.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
All right, we'll go down to the, just the reminder for the directors to please use your little pencil here and if you need to speak. And with that now, we'll move on to our special calendar. And for item 1 of our special calendar, we have our outgoing board members recognition. We'll be recognizing our outgoing San Joaquin Hills TCA Board Chair, Janine Heft, and our joint board member, Farah Khan. And with that, I'm going to read some words about these two incredible individuals. So it's my pleasure to acknowledge the contributions of two of my colleagues whose time serving on the San Joaquin Hills and Foothill Eastern boards have come to a close, Chair Heft and Director Khan. Janine Heft, Chair. I'd like to recognize Chair Heft and her service on the San Joaquin Hills Board of Directors as a representative from the city of Laguna Hills. I've had the pleasure of working with her for the past several years and most recently alongside each other in our capacities as chairs. I hope you will indulge me for a moment as I highlight Chair Heft's contributions to the advancement of the agency's mission and strategic initiatives. Since joining the board in 2018, 6 years ago, Chair Heft hasn't hesitated to engage in the policies of great importance to the agency. She's served on the Joint Communications and Marketing Committee, Joint Environmental Committee, Joint Strategic Planning Committee, Joint Capital Programs and Project Committee, and as Vice Chair of the Joint Finance and Investment Committee, and as Chair of the Joint Toll Operations Committee, and Chair of the Joint External Affairs Committee. Just exhausting. Anyways, Chair Heft's dedication to the TCA is highlighted by her leadership roles as Chair of the San Joaquin Hills Board in 2024 and Vice Chair in years 21 to 23. She has championed several priorities of the agencies, including the early bond paydown program, the back office partnership with San Bernardino Transportation Authority, and of course, any program or project that furthered the TCA's environmental commitment, especially when they involve cows, like the cattle grazing program at the Live Oak Plaza Conservation Area. Chair Heft, your colleagues and I want to thank you for your commitment to the toll roads, regional mobility, and public service to the people of Orange County. We will miss your leadership, we will miss you, and we wish you the best as you enter a new chapter in your life. And now, Director Khan. I'd like to recognize Director Khan as the City of Irvine representative on both San Joaquin Hills and Foothill Eastern boards. I'm sure I speak for our colleagues when I say we've appreciated the opportunity to serve with you during the 4-year tenure on the boards. Your willingness to serve on several committees, including Joint Capital Programs and Projects Committee, Joint Strategic Planning Committee, Joint Toll Operations Committee, and Joint External Affairs Committee, and the Joint Finance and Investment Committee has added great value to the agencies. As a member of the Joint Capital Programs and Projects Committee, Director Khan has been an integral part of moving our capital improvement program forward over the years as the TCA continues to advance projects as specified in our strategic plan. She was generous with her time and made it a point to visit TCA's booths at special events, spending time with the staff and helping to further educate the community about the toll roads at events such as Irvine's Global Village, Irvine's State of the City, and the Irvine Chamber's Women's of Influence. On behalf of the boards of directors, I want to thank Director Khan for investing her time in advancing the mission of the agency and to wish her the best as she embarks on a new chapter. And now we're going to go down with the leadership. I guess Director Penaloza, our chair, Vice Chair Penaloza is not here yet, so we'll do the vice chairs and the chair, and we'll go down and do a little photo op in front here. And we have a gift for Janine, a beautiful crystal. So let's go and we'll meet down here and take a photo op. You too.
Me?
Yeah, please.
Oh, do we want to wait to see if Dave comes?
Well,
Can we wait?
He's not here, we need to do it.
yeah, we kind of need to roll.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Sorry.
All right, well. I tried, David.
Yeah. We can catch him later, though. All right. Yeah, I can do the whereas. We'll do the photo. We have this- Yeah, I won't make you hold both.
Okay.
Then we're gonna get one. We're good? All right.
Like a third person that said that. I don't know, I just felt that way. Felt that way you're feeling today? Yeah. You're rocking the air mage. Tennessee Bowl. Exactly. Volunteers, baby. Volunteers, baby. I said UT as well. Kind of burnt orange.
Okay. I'm sorry, my phone is buzzing me, and I don't like it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone, and now we really miss you, both of you. You've been just incredible to work with. I can't imagine not having Chair Heft here. This has been, okay. Move on to our San Joaquin Hills consent calendar, items 2 through 4 and 6. Would any directors like to pull any items for discussion? Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Director Connors, and a second by Director Stevens for San Joaquin Hills. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That is unanimous. We'll now go on to the Foothill Eastern consent calendar, items 2, 3, and 5. Would any directors like to poll or discuss any items?
I'd like to move consent calendar.
Okay, Director Voight has made the motion and Director Frost the second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Okay, we'll now go on to our items of business. Items number 7 and 8. And first, we'll have item 7, the year-end legislative updates. And this presentation will be given by Sean Reynolds, Director of Legislative and Government Affairs, as well as some of our legislative advocates. And this item has 2 parts, state and federal legislative updates. So this is an information item only. There will be no vote on this one, okay? So may we please have that report? There he is. Okay, we'll catch a picture with you afterwards.
I tried to hold them off, David.
Well, good morning, directors. Sean McReynolds, Director of Legislative and Government Affairs, here to present the year-end legislative update for you. And as Chair Taylor had mentioned, we do have our advocates from both Sacramento and Washington, D.C. here with us this morning in person. So it will go, myself, I'll provide a 2024 recap of our major state activity. And then we'll have Ms. Perrin from the Apex Group provide an update. And then we'll move on to a brief federal update from myself, and then we will have an outlook given by Ms. Lent from Aiken Gump. So without further ado, I just wanted to highlight some of our, again, major activity in 2024 at the state level. Starting with our most recent trip to Sacramento, you can see there myself, CEO Chamberlain, and Mr. Valdez, Chief Toll Operations Officer. We're up in Sacramento in September discussing 2 primary issues, the first of which was a series of meetings with the Capital Area Regional Toll Authority, otherwise known as CARTA, which is the newly formed JPA in the Sacramento area that's been tasked with implementing the new YOLO I-80 express lanes in the Sacramento area. And they had just gone through the CTC approval process, including an AB 194 application. So we thought that it would be worthwhile to spend some time with CARTA staff discussing their experience going through that process as we prepare for our own AB 194 application for the 24191 Express Connector project. So we were able to share some best practices, and we also discussed the potential for back office support services and toll processing for their express lanes once they're up and running, similar to the services that we provide for SBCTA currently for the I-10 express lanes. So we had some very positive discussions with CARTA staff, and we'll look forward to continuing to build that relationship with that new JPA. The other issue that we were discussing while we were in Sacramento was interoperability. And as we've discussed several times throughout this year, our commitment to pushing forward for a legislative fix on national interoperability at the state level. We just wanted to highlight some of the key meetings that we had while we were in Sacramento. And I've actually got a separate slide at the end of my presentation which goes into a bit more detail on this. But just for this purpose here, I just wanted to mention that we met with leadership from the California State Transportation Agency, as well as executive staff from Caltrans, committee staff from both the Assembly and Senate side, as well as leadership staff to discuss our potential TCA-sponsored legislation for next year. Wanted to give a quick update for you on where we are in the 2024 state budget, which has already been completed and finalized. We're about halfway through the state fiscal year, but we're operating under right now a $298 billion budget. Most of those funds come from the general fund, approximately $211 billion, with special funds contributing $84 billion and a small allocation of bond funds of approximately $2.4 billion to ultimately get to that total of $298 billion. If you recall earlier this year in some of the budget negotiations, there was some disagreement as to what the budget deficit was going to look like. So according to the governor's office, the current budget addresses the $46 billion deficit through a number of deferrals, fund shifts, and program delays for some of the more costly programs to the state. Drilling down a little bit deeper into the transportation budget, which was approximately $30.4 billion this year, that's a reduced amount from last year by approximately $4.5 billion or 13%. So significant reduction, but broadly speaking, minimal modifications to the transportation budget, with the Caltrans budget primarily being retained, although we have seen some transit funding that was delayed by the governor's office, including the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, as well as the Zero Emission Transit Capital Program. I'm mentioning these programs because these have been noted by the administration as priority programs to help meet the state's climate goals and transportation goals, but those have been delayed in the outer years. We've included our full bill watch list in the packet this morning, but I just wanted to highlight a few major bills of interest that we engaged on this year, all of which have been signed into law and will be taking effect on January 1st of 2025. The first was Assemblymember Lackey's bill, AB 2645, which dealt primarily with Amber Alert coordination between tolling agencies and the CHP. We've discussed this bill, I think, with the committee and as well as with the board earlier this year as well. This bill would have and will increase the coordination efforts between tolling agencies and the CHP when an Amber Alert is issued. The intent of the bill was to essentially allow toll operators to more or less in real time share when a vehicle of interest goes through a toll gantry, and for that information to be sent over to the CHP as they're looking to identify that individual. We did an analysis of how this bill would impact TCA's policies, and we found that there would be relatively minimal impact to our operations. And so we were able to communicate that with the author's office. But we had learned that through discussions with other toll operators in the state that some believed that there was going to be some impact to their operations, which could be perceived as burdensome. So the author's office ultimately amended the bill to make it an opt-in as opposed to a requirement to work more closely with CHP when those alerts are issued. So that bill has been signed into law. The next bill is AB 2111 by Assemblymember Wallace, which dealt with license plate obstruction and alteration. And specifically, this bill amended state code to make it more clear that individuals are prohibited from altering their license plates for the purpose of evading a toll. And so that was clarified in this bill and was also signed into law. SB 960 by Senator Wiener was an effort to really help with the Complete Streets transportation planning efforts across the state. Broadly speaking, the bill sought to help prioritize funding at the state level for projects that focus on complete streets, which include active transportation and bike and pedestrian facilities. I'll just note that this has been a fairly long-standing practice from Caltrans' perspective to prioritize those projects. But this really codified that practice into state code. So again, that bill was also signed into law that we were watching very closely. The last bill was SB 768 by Senator Caballero, which dealt with VMT, that's vehicle miles traveled, and a study that when the bill was initially introduced, it would have required the State Transportation Agency to conduct a study and report out to the legislature the benefits or lack thereof for VMT. And the metrics around the environmental impacts that it's having on the transportation sector. And so the bill also included a mention of local transportation agencies to potentially participate in that study, of which TCA would be included. So we were watching this bill very closely as well, and I'll note that several other transportation agencies were supportive in concept. However, the bill was amended late in the game and ultimately was redirected to focus on the impacts of housing and how VMT is increasing the housing supply and the stock throughout the state. So it doesn't necessarily apply to TCA any longer, but that was a bill that we were watching very closely. And lastly, as I mentioned, I wanted to just briefly touch on interoperability again, just to make sure that we're reiterating to the board our commitment from staff's perspective to carry out the board-adopted legislative platform and strategic plan, which includes a commitment to finding a legislative fix for interoperability at the state level. So we've conducted a significant amount of outreach throughout this year, including 2 separate Sacramento advocacy trips. We've been working closely with our state agency partners as well as our toll operating partners as well through CTOC. I've helped coordinate an interoperability working group within the legislative subcommittee within CTOC to help facilitate some discussions and garner support for our bill concept. And so we have continued to move forward, and we'll continue to conduct outreach with our regional governments such as SCAG and OCOG, as well as our advocacy organizations, including ACCOC, League of Cities, and others. So just wanted to make sure that we were highlighting this for the board. I'll go ahead and invite up Ms. Perrin to go ahead and provide a election recap and a 25 outlook.
Thank you, Sean. Good morning, Chair, Directors. I'm Melanie Perrin. I'm a senior advocate at the Apex Group. I also would like to acknowledge Felipe Fuentes, partner at the Apex Group, who is also here with me today. First off, we just really want to express our appreciation that you have selected our firm to help take your advocacy efforts to the next level in Sacramento. We look forward to getting to know each of you better and fighting for your interest in Sacramento over the next few years. So coming from where Sean was, I'm going to go into a little bit of the election outcomes, what the crystal ball for 2025 holds, which, as you can imagine, is very hazy and exciting to go and try to predict where we're going to be and where I'll stand here next year and seeing how much of that really yielded. So I want to start with the election results. So at the state legislature, with term limits, we saw a significant turnover this year with legislators. Approximately about 27% of the legislature turned over this year with 34 new legislators, with 23 new assembly members and 11 senators. Something of note is that Republicans did gain 2 seats in the Assembly and 1 in the Senate. But Democrats still will hold a supermajority in Sacramento. So that certainly means we have our work cut out for us, what we do in Sacramento for you, and getting to go and build those relationships, which we've already started doing over this year, getting to know candidates that were running for these seats. We also additionally will be having special elections. Of note will be Senator Janet Nguyen, who's now supervisor in Orange County. There will be a special election for her on February 25th, as well as Assemblymember Vince Vaughn, who has now gone to the U.S. House of Representatives up in Bakersfield and Kern County. I also just want to quickly touch on local infrastructure financing measures. I know that as how TCA's operations work, you're in a uniquely situated place. As we look at what's happening across the board of what voters are interested in when it comes to financing transportation and infrastructure. Generally, on the statewide ballot, there were 2 GEO bonds regarding climate and education. Those both overwhelmingly passed. However, we saw some mixed results at the local level. When we saw that there was local reauthorization for sales tax measures, those generally did get reapproved. However, with new sales tax measures, voters were more inclined to vote those down. So just a little bit of the trend of where things are with the electorate, and as we look at what transportation funding future looks like, where some of the opportunities are and some of the challenges will be for us. So starting with what the look ahead for 2025 holds, as I talked about, affordability, we certainly heard that from the electorate this year, and you all are elected, you all are familiar with this. Some of the key themes that are coming out for the legislature in this upcoming year is certainly going to continue to be housing and homelessness. There's already conversations about a housing bond on the 26th ballot. A lot of details to come forth in that, but that's something certainly that's going to be of interest. And there's also, I'll just note, a higher education bond potentially being proposed as well. Insurance, when it comes to wildfire, the first bill introduced in the legislature this year is regarding wildfire insurance. That will continue to be a big issue on the horizon with the legislature and what's impacting Californians daily, and where the insurance markets are being and either continuing coverage or canceling coverage for Californians. Legislative leadership has indicated that they are very still hyper-focused on energy cost and how it impacts all of us. And what they're looking to do is do a lot more oversight into what we're paying when it comes to energy for electricity and gas and what can be done to reduce the burden on Californians. So affordability, I think, is going to be this key thread through what we're going to see through 2025. And again, with how the electorate voted, we did see more of a push to Republican side, and that will be interesting of how we see how a Democratic supermajority will play into that, and if they're really going to listen to that, or if we're going to have progressive conversations still pushing in that space. So as Sean referenced about the 2024 state budget, it was a pretty significant deficit that the state was managed to build back up. The State Legislative Analyst Office, which is the nonpartisan arm for the legislature, has just recently put out their budget report that they believe that the state budget will be roughly balanced in 25-26 with a $2 billion deficit. That's budget dust when you think about it, almost $300 billion budget for the state of California. So that's great news coming into next year. The problem becomes the out years. They're predicting $20 to $30 billion deficits in 26-27 and 27-28. So while California might be in a stable space this year, we certainly have some issues on the horizon when it comes to the financial state of our state. And especially, too, as I think you're all familiar with, we're dependent widely on income tax. And that is a volatile swing annually for the state. So there could be something unexpected that goes and fills the coffers for the state, or we have impacts negatively that's going to have to force the legislature and the governor to tighten their belts further. In the state budget realm, the governor will be putting out his proposed budget by January 10th, so we'll get to see what some of his priorities are and what he is considering in that space. Additionally, the legislature's already put forth a constitutional amendment regarding expanding the ability to put more money in the rainy day fund. So when we are in down years, to be able to go and use a rainy day fund, which we didn't have in 2008 when we had the Great Recession. So using that ability of when we have good years, to make sure that we're preparing for bad years ahead. So what you really care about, what the crystal ball holds for 2025. Transportation, we're kind of in an interesting spot right now, and I'm going to get into the federal overlay of this at the end of this presentation, so don't worry, we'll get into what those politics may hold for the state. So the future of funding for transportation is really on top of mind. We work closely with Transportation California and other key transportation stakeholders up in Sacramento. There's already going to start being a push about what's the new revenue model to help go in and shore up transportation funds. With the governor proposing or having his executive order for in 2035 to go from new cars cannot be internal combustible engines anymore, gas tax becomes a thing of the past. What does that look like? We have to start those conversations now. SB 1, if any of you are familiar with it, which I'm sure you all are, with the gas tax in 2017 was a multi-year effort. Several years went into getting that final product of SB 1 through the legislature, getting the support, and finally getting it signed, and then obviously having to go to the ballot as well to shore up the protections in the Constitution. So the work has to begin now to get something in the next few years. So we do anticipate we will see legislation regarding funding, how we move forward in funding, but that's not to say we're going to have a funding package at the end of next year. So don't get your hopes up that will be a big thing. But the conversation needs to start, especially with the fact of how many new legislators we have, and the fact we're going to have a new governor in 26 as well. So a lot of work has to start being laid now about what are we going to do about transportation and ensuring that we get those funds to continue. Vehicle miles mitigation, VMT. The governor is making there's been a lot in play regarding VMT mitigation. Your executive director, CEO, has led panels on this regarding how mitigation is being handled at the state level. I'm sure you're all privy to the fact that the I-5 project here in Orange County is a $400 million project. The VMT mitigation cost that Caltrans is requiring is an additional $400 million. Now, granted, that is a very egregious example, but we are seeing this. In Tulare County, they have, I think, a $200 million project with a $55 million VMT mitigation. To what end? And what are we achieving from that? So there's certainly going to be a lot of more conversation around VMT mitigation and what that means, and especially as we think about the future of when VMT metrics came into play, that was still with when we had a lot of gas cars on the road. As we're reducing greenhouse gas emissions in vehicles, is VMT the right metric? And what do we look for in that? So that's certainly going to be top of mind, and a lot of different advocacy groups will be focused on and seeing what opportunities and challenges will be coming up in that space. Additionally, we're seeing a lot of movement to try to restrict capacity increasing projects in Sacramento. There was legislation last year to restrict an SB1 program known as the Trade Corridor Enhancements Program, which by the name is how do we do goods movement in the state of California? We need capacity, we need to give the ability. So you think of the truck climbing lanes on I-15, there was a big movement to try to restrict that they wouldn't expand those truck climbing lanes. So we do anticipate that we're going to see more legislation in this space to restrict capacity increasing. Additionally, the administration has also started to put out some markers about also reducing capacity increasing projects through their Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure, also known as CAPDI. They're currently right now going through an update of their guidelines, but they also are interested in getting it into statute. And this is really about how we do transportation investments across the board, state and local agencies, to make sure that the climate is being taken in consideration in transportation planning. What if they do look to codify, there could be significant problems and challenges with that. This is a living document. These principles change. It's a massive stakeholder group. We have participated in that on your behalf, and we're continuing to work with those agencies involved. But we got to be thoughtful about, it's not about Governor Newsom's legacy, which he's really trying to push right now. What's the future legacy that we want to be leaving on our transportation system? And codifying this is not the best way to do this. So that is continued work we'll be working on. I get very choked up talking about transportation, as you can tell, so bear with me as I'm losing my voice. So the additional on funding, what we have going on is cap and trade reauthorization. Now, cap and trade actually goes for a few more years, but there's already working groups at the state level about what does reauthorization look like. We do, just for awareness, why do you all care about cap and trade? Substantial billions go into transit from cap and trade and into high-speed rail, which you may or may not have interest in, but just for the awareness that cap and trade does fund transportation projects. So there's going to be interesting push by the environmental justice community to do more funding into transit. There's going to be others who are going to be interested in more capital infrastructure-based pushes through cap and trade. And with where the budget stands, people are going to look to cap and trade as additional ways to go backfill other programs that have been cut through the general fund. So we'll be continuing to be involved in that and involved in those discussions, and especially where they impact potentially TCA's efforts. Lastly, it's not a throwaway. I just want to flag that AR, artificial intelligence, continues just to be a big conversation point. The governor has vetoed legislation on this, but we do expect to continue to have conversations in the AI space. And thinking about how TCA is very technologically advanced and what you all are moving forward as an agency, how does that play into opportunities that for the future of transportation planning and other things? So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. So now we're going to get to the really boring part of the conversation, which is what's happening at the federal level and what that plays into for the state. The governor hasn't said it, but he's running for president, so let's just get that out there. So I want to put that overlay of the next 2 years. As we talk about, the governor will be terming out in 26. His legacy is now, and he's got to figure out how he's going to go, how he's setting that platform to be in the presidential campaign. He called for a special session after President-elect Trump was elected, and really looking to make it a legal resource funding conversation. The administration is pushing for $25 million in legal resource dollars to go and defend California's interest in courts against the federal government. To put into some perspective, during the first Trump administration, California sued the federal government 123 times for a cost of over $40+ million. I don't have the numbers of how much California recouped in that, but that is what the state is preparing for in this special session, is just how we direct funds. Did the governor need to call a special session for this? No, he could have done it. This could have been done administratively, but this certainly just puts a spotlight on to the work that he is showing that he is doing regarding the incoming presidency. Additionally, we're seeing legislation already be introduced to, and this is the term of art that's being used, Sacramento Trump-proof the state. And I do want to say that under the first Trump administration, California did a lot of efforts to look at how to shore up privacy and protecting Californians. So a lot of work was already done under the first administration. The second, so it's interesting to see how the legislature is responding in this second round of what they're going to be looking for. This will certainly include human rights. We think about immigration, reproductive rights, potentially state-to-state information components. So those are some of the things that are certainly on the horizon that we are already seeing that legislators are introducing. Programmatic and grant funds, this may be more of interest to you in your roles for your cities and counties that you represent. We don't anticipate a lot on the programmatic side of funds being impacted right now, and certainly your federal lobbyists may have a different scene on that. From where we stand, we're not anticipating so much in that space, but the grant funds, the Biden administration is making a big play to try to push as many grant funds out. I recently met with the California Division, Federal Highways Division Administrator, and she had talked about the fact that they had over 300 grants they're trying to get out before the end of the Biden administration in a matter of 2 months. So Godspeed to them and good luck. So certainly a lot that's happening in that space. There is certainly concern about what could President-elect Trump do regarding IIJA dollars, CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, and how that can impact California. The president-elect has not minced his words when he talks about California, so I think there's going to be some interesting concerns about what those impacts are going to be for dollars that are supposed to be coming to California. That being said, the U.S. House of Representatives is on a very tight margin with a Republican-controlled Republican majority. And some of those Republicans reside in California. Those Republican seats are going to be really important to President-elect Trump, so he's going to need to make sure that he's continuing to help those districts, and therefore the impacts that while President-elect Trump might be making comments and threats to California, he still needs the support of House Republicans in California and Republicans in California to help continue to shore up his party's interest. So it may not be as detrimental. So that will be something that we'll see how that plays into. And then going back to Governor Newsom running for president, if you're trying to, it will be interesting to see if they're going to try to push a more progressive agenda or go more center, because the governor should be looking to go more center. But in California, he might decide, well, I'm going to go very more progressive in our policies. So that's just some of the stuff to look that we don't have a clear indication right now, but we do anticipate on the horizon. That will be some of the interesting components that overlay any policy negotiations that we are engaged in for the next year. And I'll just quickly say in 2026, we do have all our constitutional officers turning over in the state, so we've already had several people announce their run for governor. So if any of you would like to run for governor, here's your chance. Throw your hat in the ring. There's a lot of opportunity. And then we'll also have an additional 13 legislators turning over in 26. So relationship building is really key for us over the next couple of years, where we're really focusing our efforts, because these people are going to be here for quite some time, and we need to get in with them now, talk about what TCA's interests are now, and how we can move the ball forward to make sure that your agency continues to showcase the amazing work that you all are doing. So with that, I am welcome here for any questions, and thank you again for having us represent your interest.
Thank you very much for your report. And we have some questions or comments, and first from a potential governor, Director Wagner.
I've been to Sacramento. I'm not going back. All right. I actually don't know whether this is a question for you or for our federal team or both of you, but okay. So the governor has decided to preemptively stick a finger in the eye of the Trump administration. Maybe that's good politics on his side of the aisle for 2028. Doesn't strike me as good politics if you are an agency in California that relies on things like, federal funds. What is a strategy for us to say, we're not the governor, and we, forget any political differences, need the federal help? How do we go about communicating that message?
I feel like this becomes both a state and federal conversations. That's why I gave Sean a look right there, since he oversees all our efforts. Part of it, I think, is how we are working with our agencies, our partners, how each of you are working with your state entities and your federal community. I mean, you all work with your House of Representatives. You have those relationships in DC too. Is really talking about the efforts that are happening on the ground. And I can't emphasize enough that as much as there might be a Trump versus California public battle going on, President-elect Trump needs Californians. Like, he needs California in the House of Representatives. So that's where I think we're gonna see that interesting opportunity. Another thing is, I mean, you served with former Representative McCarthy. He may certainly be involved with the Trump administration as well. So I think there's some opportunity about how do we look at the relationships we have now, and really working through how do we communicate what our interests are and what we are delivering on behalf of our constituency. So I'm not discouraged by it. It's just another level of, okay, how do we make sure that we're leveraging and using all the resources we have to go and put forward the interest and really educate members and those involved in decision-making about how we can move forward on key policies.
Director Stevens.
So first of all, I just want to say that I'm blown away with both of you, but especially Ms. Perrin. I was feeling a little PTSD when you were speaking, and I was thinking, you know, I'm really glad that you weren't one of my law professors, because I would have gotten the worst case of carpal tunnel syndrome if I was actually responsible for this material, which of course I'm not. But it was really insightful and very very comprehensive. The one thing I would say is this, is I think we do have an opportunity at the federal level with, if I could just talk about like my little section of the world, Costa Mesa and the environs. Congresswoman Porter was against earmarks, as you remember. So like when we would have these presentations previously, she wouldn't even be on the slide, right? Now we have a new Congress member, Dave Min, and I have a very, very close relationship, you know, speed dial type relationship with Congressmember Min. And so, if I get his name right. So if you do have conversations with him or his office, I would just like, please include me in that, because I think I can be of value. That's all I offer. And so, God, great job. Wonderful. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Okay, Chair Heft.
Thank you. Yeah, the information was excellent, very comprehensive, very informative. So I had a couple of questions. Going back to your presentation, Mr. McReynolds, you had mentioned AB 2645 and that there would be an opt-in option for the Amber Alert. I'm just going to assume that we on the TCA, we wouldn't hesitate to make sure we are opting in and participating in that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. We will certainly need to await some guidance from the state as this bill is being implemented. We'd like to see a little bit more information coming down from the relevant agencies to make sure that we are entering into this with eyes wide open. But you know, again, I'll defer to some of the executive staff here, perhaps our CEO, but we'll certainly want to have that discussion moving forward, and we'll look for the board's direction on that. But yes, I think that as I had mentioned, from an operational standpoint, the impact to TCA for that type of requirement would be relatively minimal. So I can't imagine that that there would be any burdensome impacts to the agency.
Sean, Chair Heft, if I can
Sure.
just be a little bit more direct on that, unless there are significant requirements that cost our agencies a lot more money than we've already seen, we will likely be opting in.
Okay, no, I think that's very practical. You know, we need to make sure we're doing our part. If there are abductions, you know, that we're making sure that if someone takes the toll roads, that we're able to provide the information where needed. My second question, thank you so much for your presentation, Melanie. Welcome aboard as Apex. And you'd mentioned the mitigation going on with VMT. Does that still mean that we have hope for some common sense and level of service, or some hybrid thereof to finally end up being what we use here?
I'm chuckling because I joke in my day job that common sense, logic, rationality doesn't exist. What the rational, logical conversation. I would love to say yes. Unfortunately, I don't think that's really going to be the case, though. And the reason why is when we think about the more complex nature of VMT mitigation and what certain advocacy groups and interests are in that, they really want to get cars off the road. They want to direct people into transit, into multimodal options. So I don't necessarily think we're going to go back to a level of service. Could there be an opportunity for some consideration of hybrid as we think about the different regions of the state? Does a VMT metric make sense more in rural California versus urban California? I think there's some opportunity there. I don't know if we'll go back to level of service, unfortunately, because on some level, I'll be really frank, we have advocacy groups that actually want induced congestion, so people will be forced to get out of their cars. So that's why we see this trend of why we shouldn't have any capacity increasing projects. So these are some of the challenges and voices that we have playing in the sandbox that we all play in. That's not to say that there isn't a path forward, but I think it's figuring out what is that right metric and how do we do it thoughtfully? And the other conversation, I was just in a big meeting yesterday talking about how do you know that the VMT metric is actually working? And what's really unfortunate about the Caballero bill that was passed and signed into law this year, initially it was more broad-based about how is VMT metric working, and now they've restricted it just to really a housing component. Certainly that is one part of the conversation, but that's not the full story. So working to get some of that information, and as the governor is looking also to do VMT mitigation banking, how does that play into it? And I've had some preliminary conversations with the governor's office about how do you do this correctly? What are we actually trying to get at? What does success look like in this program? So I think there's an opportunity here, certainly open to ideas, but I just don't think we're going to end up going back to a level service at this point metric just because of some of the advocacy groups and also where certain officials stand right now in the administration.
Well, thank you for your raw honesty and very refreshing.
Thank you.
Director Voights.
Got it. Well, welcome aboard. Good job. Obviously, there's a lot going on in Sacramento. One of the things that I wanted to ask is, when we first came up with AB 2645, we were kind of very hesitant because of longevity that we would have to man our hours and screen. But is there apps or the technology to allow us to where we actually kind of like automatically, if a license plate goes through, that's a hit, it would light up? Is there something that man hours wouldn't be so much involved? It would be like a technology driven?
Thank you for that question. I might invite up Mr. Valdez to maybe speak to the more technical nature of that operations question.
Thank you. Okay, Vinny,
As always,
good
thanks.
answer.
Thanks for the question, Director Voights. Short answer, yes. When the bill came up, we spoke with CHP about how we can, we have the capability on our tolling system to keep an eye out for wanted plates associated with emergency alerts, and to generate emails, alerts on our system when a wanted plate is identified. So the conversations we had with CHP that CEO Chamberlain was referring to is, okay, what are the specifics? Where do we send, if we can generate this email, where do we send it, right? Who's going to receive it? What's going to happen once it's received? We need to finish those conversations about how it would work in practice once CHP is ready to go on its end. But yes, to answer your question, yes, our system could be made to watch for
back
plates
to
and
your
generate
eyes
alerts.
on, I'd rather it be AI eye on rather than us having staff time on there. So the fact is,
No, we figured out a way to do that that's just system-based,
And
right?
I think that many of our cities are moving to the flock system and allowing ingress and egress from our cities to be able to track crimes or specific vehicles that are maybe sought after. So that's something that I think that Chair Heff mentioned on that. We would want to participate in, but the fact is, what's the cost to the agency? And if there is the technology available to allow technology AI on there to where we got a hit, and then that be alerted to us. So that's I'm supportive of that. Melanie, what you mentioned, thank you, Vinny. Great tie. Can't wait to see Monday's tie. So, you talked about Sacramento tightening their belt. We don't think that they know how to tighten their belt down here. So it's just a mentality that, I know that when Director Wagner was once up in the legislature, they never tightened their belt. So the fact is, we talked about having the budget deficit wind down a little bit right now, but then moving back up in the years to come. They don't have the foresight to think that there's rainy days coming.
Well, I will say, and thank you for allowing me a moment to chuckle, Director. The legislature in moving to do the constitutional amendment to expand the rainy day fund to the amount of dollars that can be appropriated into that account is one thing. I will say this, to Governor Newsom's credit, he has actually been fiscally prudent in a lot of the bills that have ended up on his desk. What I will say is the legislature has not been prudent in a lot of the programs and initiatives that they've pushed forward, really forcing the governor to do a lot of work. So there was a significant amount of vetoes this year that really talked about the fiscal impacts on the state, and just that would be a fiscally imprudent decision to have the bill go into law. So I think we've seen that the governor has laid some groundwork there over the past couple of years when it comes to legislation coming to his desk. I will also note that the Legislative Analyst Office in their budget outlook that they just put out also talked about the fact that the legislature needs to be much more thoughtful about how they're doing program review. And when they're talking about program expansion, who's it really serving? What's the core services of all the programs that are being delivered? And are those deliverables being met? So I think there's an opportunity, but again, we have 34 new legislators, and it will be curious of, they're all gonna have their big initiatives that they're gonna wanna push forward. Governor Newsom, what I think right now, will be not inclined to do any new programs generally, unless there's something that they feel like they have to do to backfill something that could come away from the federal government. But it's also, the legislature has also taken a look. I will say that they have reduced their bill limit, which is a big deal for us this year too. The Assembly can introduce 50 bills in a legislative session. The Senate can introduce 40. The Assembly has been reduced to 35, and the Senate has also been reduced to 35. That also makes it better for all of us to have real thoughtful conversations about policies going through versus a rubber stamp and a supermajority that just gets to the governor's desk. Then the governor actually has to be the adult in the room making the decisions of this is not actually in the best interest of California's budget. So I wish common sense and rationale prevailed every day. It doesn't exactly, but that's what we're here for, is to navigate through all those.
But just don't.
No, I'll stick with my Dr. Pepper. Thank you.
We at TCA consider ourselves kind of trendsetters, and one of the things that we have on our table, we got one way interoperability. Have you put that on your thing to get out there to talk to the new legislators about that? Because California, Sacramento's the one that's making it less convenient for our users to go out of state and use our transponders, our stickers.
Yeah, thank you, Director. That is absolutely a talking point that we are and will continue to use as we discuss interoperability legislation for next year. So yes, absolutely.
Director Otto.
Thank you. Director Heft asked my question about Amber Alert opt-ins, so I appreciate that, and hopefully you guys will be following up with us on that so we can learn more about it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Okay, thank you for an excellent update on our legislature and federal legislature as well. We appreciate it very much, and well done. Next, we will go to, that was a information-only item, so we don't
Sorry,
have to
Director,
vote.
if I may.
Oh, you have
Chair
more?
Taylor, yes, we
Oh,
have a brief federal legislative
Oh,
update.
I
and
apologize.
we'll also have Ms. Lent provide an update for you as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's a lengthy item. We'll move quickly through these slides here. So just want to provide a quick update for you on, again, our major activities at the federal level this year. Earlier this year, staff had participated with the Mobility 21 advocacy trip to Washington, D.C., of which CEO Chamberlain serves as an advisory board member. So that provided an opportunity for us to discuss Southern California transportation issues with major decision makers in Washington, including the chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, USDOT, the FHWA administrator, and several members of the Orange County and Southern California delegation. And with the assistance of Ms. Lent, we held several individual meetings to talk about TCA's mission accomplishments and our priorities. Again, very quickly, just on the budget for where we are right now at the federal level. Broadly speaking, I would say this year there's been minimal budget action from both the House and the Senate. The House has passed 5 of its 12 appropriations bills off the House floor. The Senate had considered none of the House-passed bills and did not pass any of its own appropriations bills off the Senate floor. And so come September 30th, earlier this year, we were at an impasse and we needed a continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown. And at that time, the House Republicans had offered a continuing resolution with stricter voter ID requirements, if you recall. The Senate would not consider that House proposal, and so ultimately a clean continuing resolution was agreed upon, which was signed into law on September 27th and extended government spending through December 20th. And so Congress will need to be active in this next week to avoid a government shutdown. Very quickly, the transportation legislation outlook for this next year, certainly with keeping in mind that we have now a unified Congress and White House, the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill will be expiring on September 30th of 2026. But we feel confident that after the major cabinet positions are filled with the new administration coming in, that the House and Senate will be holding hearings on that reauthorization legislation sometime mid-next year. And we typically foresee this reauthorization as an opportunity to address broader transportation policies, such as interoperability. And we expect that there to be some changes in this upcoming reauthorization when it comes to transportation spending and policies. Just a couple other key issues that we have been engaged in over this last year. Earlier this year, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, had solicited comment on a draft rule that they had proposed, which would have potentially downgraded the radio frequency used by toll operators across the United States and potentially disrupting some of our operations here at TCA. And so Mr. Valdez and the toll ops team had coordinated with our Federal Trade Association, the International Bridge, Tunnel, and Turnpike Association, that's IBTTA, to engage with them and broadly express our the potential impacts of that draft rule. And so it's expected at this time that given the change in the administration and at the congressional level that this draft rule will not be officially issued. So, but we're going to continue to monitor that into 2025. Again, declining federal gas tax revenue continues to be a topic of conversation also at the federal level, calling into question the federal investment for major transportation projects, including roads, bridges, and highways. So we're going to see if there are going to be any broader discussions about this with Republican-controlled Congress, and we'll be engaged in that over this next year as well. 2 other quick items for you. I wanted to highlight some language that had been included in the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, or the THUD appropriations bill, that would have restricted the Federal Highway Administration from entering into any tolling agreements with the state of New York when it comes to their congestion pricing program in New York City. That bill, that appropriations bill, was, as I mentioned, not passed by the Senate and was not signed into law, but it showed from the Republican standpoint in the House that they were concerned with some of what the state of New York had been proposing as part of that congestion pricing program, which was abruptly halted earlier this year, but is scheduled now to come online sometime early next month. And again, the Federal Highway Administration did enter into an agreement with the state of New York for that program. So we want to make sure that we're highlighting for the board some of these broader national conversations as it relates to tolling and congestion pricing. The last thing that I'll just mention is that the Clean Air Vehicle Program, that's the CAV program, is expiring on September 30th of 2025. That program, which is a longstanding program that has to be reauthorized at the federal level, allows for toll operators to provide discounts on their toll facilities for clean air vehicles. TCA does not currently offer any discounts for clean air vehicles on our facilities, But we are engaged with various stakeholders at the state and the federal level to determine the impact of the reauthorization or lack thereof at the federal level next year. So that concludes my brief presentation. I'd like to invite Ms. Lent up to provide her update as well, and then we will move on to the next item.
Welcome, Ms. Lent.
Thank you. Good morning, directors, and it's really nice to be here. And I know many of you, but I also see that there's some new faces since I've been here in person. So just quickly a little bit about myself. I'm a partner at Aiken Gump, which is an international full-service law firm. We also have one of the largest government relations and lobbying practices in Washington. We have about 75 lawyers and advisors, and we're probably about 50-50 Democrats and Republicans, which has served us well over the years. I had our transportation practice, and I have a deep understanding of transportation laws and policies. But before I joined Aiken Gump, I was a legal counsel to the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. And Aiken has had the honor of working with the TCA for many years. I won't even say how many years because it dates me, but it has been an honor, and excited to continue to do that. So can you, next slide, please? Oh, can I? I can do it. Oh, sorry about that. Great. So just a brief discussion of the federal election recap. And I will say I agree that there's a lot of uncertainty, but I see opportunities and risks. And we're going to talk about both of those and then how we can take advantage of the opportunities. And so, as you know, the Republicans won a trifecta, as it is known, the House, the Senate, and the White House. But keeping in mind that the House margin is very narrow, 220 to 215, and for the first 3 or so months of the next Congress, they'll have 3 House members who will not be serving because one of them resigned, Congressman Gates, and then 2 of them had been appointed by Trump to offices in his administration. And so the margin is going to be really narrow. So there is going to be the need for, at least for some bills, for bipartisan compromise. And then in the Senate, the margin is 53 to 47. And again, because in the Senate, for most bills, there's an ability, for a senator to filibuster without a 60-vote margin. So again, you're going to need a lot of compromise. And so, as noted, Orange County has 2 new representatives, both who are Democrats, Derek Tran and Dave Min, and you have a new Senator Adam Schiff. And so one of the things that will be important to do is for the agency to get to know these 2 new members and the senator. And so that's something we'll be talking about, scheduling those meetings and involving directors who have relationships with those members. That's something that we've done in the past that has been really, really valuable, to bring members that have relationships in to assist us with that. So the timeline for Congress and the Trump administration to kick off, members of Congress will be sworn in on January 3rd, and then President Trump will be sworn in on January 20th, at which point then President Trump will be sending his nominees' names to the Senate. The Senate committees will be holding hearings. Full Senate will be voting, and then the Senate will be swearing in the nominees that they vote to confirm. And President-elect Trump has done a very good job so far of announcing his nominees, and so he's really on track to getting the cabinet up and running pretty quickly. And just some of the key positions I think you've seen is Sean Duffy, in particular, to be Secretary of Transportation. He was a former member of Congress, and we expect him to be confirmed with no issues, as we would Doug Burgum to be Secretary of Interior, and Lee Zeldin to be the Environmental Protection Agency Administrator. Those are all agencies that in the past have had some oversight over TCA projects, depending on the project. And then for the lower level nominees, the federal highways, fish and wildlife, those types of nominees, we expect those to come later, not much later, but sometime in the first 2 or 3 months of 2025. Okay, so we're going to talk about what to expect in 2025. So if we focus on appropriations first, as Sean mentioned, Congress has not been able to pass the fiscal year 2025 funding bills. They are really close to a deal, and we're expecting them to announce that in the next couple of days. And what we understand is that Congress will postpone fiscal year 2025 funding decisions until March of next year, which will then likely slow down the process to consider and pass 2026 appropriations bills. And at the same time, the current debt ceiling extension expires in January. There's some wiggle room there, but this will all have to get wrapped up together early next year, the debt ceiling, 2025 appropriations, and then the big effort around 2026, which is you now have a trifecta. What will Congress try to do in terms of, what programs will they cut? What programs will they fully fund? What will they increase funding for? President will issue a budget sometime. What will that budget say? As historically, no matter who the president is, the budget was always considered dead on arrival, so to speak, because Congress wants to be the one to decide on funding priorities. But will that be different with President-elect Trump? So these are all questions. And I will mention, because the question of earmarks arose, that we are expecting Congress to continue to earmark funds for projects. Historically, TCA has not requested earmarks. There was a time that they did years ago for a project on the 241, but that's not historically been the case. But that can be something, of course, if that was something the board wanted to do, that could be revisited, with your current members of Congress. So then moving on from the funding, we can talk about the surface transportation law, which Melanie mentioned. And so, as many of you know, in 2021, Congress passed a historic infrastructure law that not only funded the highway programs and the transit programs and the rail programs, but also funded, energy and water infrastructure and other types of infrastructure. So it's in terms of what is going to happen with funds, Melanie mentioned that the agencies are working quickly to get funds under agreement. We think that's more the programs that are going to be the most at risk are the renewable energy and environmental programs, and not necessarily the transportation programs, because most of those programs have been the same programs that have been in place for many years. And so we might see some very strategic, cutting funding for the California high-speed rail or for transit projects or for bike lanes or things like that. But we're not expecting, highway program funding that's under grant agreement, or even that's not yet under grant agreement but is ready to get under grant agreement to go away. But again, we're going to see movement away from Justice 40, environmental justice, greenhouse gas reduction, sustainability, those types of efforts, which are such a big deal in California at the state level, are not going to be as big a deal at the federal level. And so again, it's unlikely that Congress is going to pass a huge infrastructure law that funds renewable energy with this administration, but it's very likely that they will reauthorize the highway and transit programs. Again, that has been happening since, I think, 1991 was the first multi-year highway law, and so that has happened historically. And we expect that really to get underway next year, which is an opportunity for TCA that we can talk about. So in early next year, we're going to see the transportation committees start to hold hearings. They're going to want to consider, recommendations from stakeholders. In the fall, they'll start drafting, and early in fall into next year, start drafting and marking up legislation. Spring, summer of 2026, pass bills and convene conference committees, and then hopefully pass legislation by September 30th, which is when the current law expires. Now, that's aspirational because typically they've had at least a couple of extensions, but that is what's likely to happen. So then focusing on opportunities for TCA, right? And some of the things that we've done in the past that have been successful is the committees, and Sean and I kind of laid the groundwork for it when we had meetings with the committees when he was in Washington for Mobility 21, is to showcase the successful toll road model. So Congress is going to be looking at how to fund the transportation law, with the gas tax, as we've discussed, is kind of an outdated model, and with electric vehicles. And just generally, this administration's appetite, which is how can a toll road and the way that TCA in particular has been authorized and how it's paying off its debts and how successful it's been can be a model for other roads and potentially for legislation. And so that's something that we can do. Interoperability. I will say that in the last authorization bill, we were successful. We drafted, working with Ben Rubin, legislation for the federal law that would preempt California from restricting the ability of toll agencies to share the information that they needed to share to be interoperable. We got that in the House bill, but then in the Senate bill, there was, the way the bill came together, there was not an opportunity to add provisions. So we can talk about that and whether that's still a priority for the agency in this reauthorization. We also, in two different transportation authorization legislations, we developed proposals for environmental streamlining reforms, which were included in both transportation laws. And we had previous CEOs of the agency testify before the committees on experiences that the agency had with complying with environmental review laws and with environmental streamlining. And so that's something else that we can look at. We also can continue to monitor potential funding opportunities. One of the things that we expect with the Trump administration, and President-elect Trump has spoken about it already, which is interest in innovation and technology, autonomous vehicles, and generally transportation technology. In the last Trump administration, they actually created a new and emerging Transportation Technology Council within the Department of Transportation to look at technology. There's some existing funding programs to pilot technology. And my assumption is that there's going to continue to be that focus. And with TCA's focus on technology, that also might be an area to look at. So before I take questions, I will kind of preempt the question that Director Wagner had asked, which was a great question about Washington and the federal government in California. And I'm going to agree with what Melanie said a little bit, but also be more positive and say that again, there's a lot of different avenues for the agency to go in and take advantage of the successes that you've had, and develop talking points that are appropriate for whether you're talking to the Trump administration or to your members of Congress, and depending on your priority, whether it's to secure funding or to advocate for policies that will make it easier for you to contract or to build projects, that we can guide you and provide some advice on how you communicate in a way that makes it more likely for you to be successful. Because I don't think it's going to be a situation where no projects in California are funded, or that, President-elect Trump takes action against an agency just because they're in California. I think if TCA were obviously to go out and kind of say things that were negative or do something to generate that. But otherwise, I think there's some real opportunities because of the way of your successes to promote that, and then to actually be on the winning end of this administration and this Congress. So with that, I will take questions.
And just before we go to questions, Susan, thank you very much. I just wanted to add on to that and go back to Director Wagner's question. One of the other things that I just wanted to mention was that our commitment is to continue to educate and conduct significant outreach specifically to our new members in the House, our new senator, and folks in leadership across the aisle, to really, again, educate folks on the successful toll road model as Susan described. The other thing that I'll just say is that we want to continue to build strong relationships with our partner agencies across the state and other key stakeholders to make sure that we are communicating a unified front with regard to some of the broader transportation policies that impact the state and TCA. So I just wanted to add that quickly. So with that, I think we'll go to questions.
Any questions from my colleagues? Okay, seeing none. All right. Sean and Ms. Len, thank you very much for a very in-depth report. It's very well done.
Thank you, directors.
And now we'll go on to item number 8, which is our community engagement updates, and this will be presented by Community Engagement Manager Jeff Bott.
Thank you. Good
Jeff,
morning.
welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, chairs and directors. Jeff Bott, I am your Community Engagement Manager, here today to give you a recap of the agency's community engagement activities this past year. Slide here. Communications and public engagement's one of the pillars of the board's adopted strategic plan. TCA has a very long history of being out in the community, informing the public about the agency's projects and initiatives and promoting goodwill that really goes all the way back to when the roads were being built. It's always been a priority for us. People always tell us they appreciate TCA having a presence in their communities and answering their questions in person. We cover a wide range of topics at our community booths, from customer service-related questions to TCA's projects, environmental programs, financial questions. And some people are not aware that the toll roads are managed by a public agency. Some people tell us they thought we were private and had shareholders, and overseen by local elected officials. So they tell us they have a more positive view about TCA and the toll roads after learning the history of how and why the roads were built. And listening to feedback, of course, is crucial when we're talking to people out there. Helps us tremendously with our messaging. Here's just a few of our favorite comments we've heard at events this past year. Everyone's got a toll road story they love to share with us. People tell us how the toll roads improved their business because they can get to more clients without worrying about traffic congestion. Others tell us they got to a wedding or a school play on time because they took the toll roads. And Vinny, we always get a lot of praise for our customer service, every event we're at. We work closely with our graphics and communications team members to create social media posts from questions and comments we get at community events. This year, a lot of people have had questions about the difference between the sticker and the switchable transponders, and others have asked us if the fast track transponder can be used on other tolled facilities in California. So graphics created those and posted them. We work closely with our graphics team to create social media posts to let people know when and where we'll be at community events so they can come visit us. And we leverage the great relationships we have with our community partners, such as the Chambers of Commerce, cities, and other organizations, and ask them to share important TCA news and information with their contacts. Here's just a few good examples. RSM and Santa Ana Chambers posted about our spring tours. Laguna Hills posted about a closure on the 73, and Mission Viejo Chamber posted something about a press release from an early bond paydown. For many years now, as part of our community outreach program, TCA has partnered with LSA Associates to educate the people about the 20,000 fossils that were discovered during construction of the toll roads. This includes presentations to schools with an LSA paleontologist and having a fossils display in our booth at various community events throughout the year. Having the fossils at events is always a big hit with the audience. We get the longest lines at most events. Popular with school kids, teenagers, and adults. We get an added bonus when we're at events because after looking at the fossils, people stick around and ask us questions about the toll roads. This past year, we provided 37 Fossils in Your Backyard presentations in schools to over 1,800 students with about 80,000 people in attendance. And special thanks to Director Khan and Vice Chair Kelly for attending some of these. Vice Chair Kelly actually helped us arrange for 3 presentations at Mission Viejo schools. Thank you so much. We also did the OC Parks Prehistoric event in Buena Park at Clark Park. The photo on the right is of a 9-million-year-old fossil of a fully intact 30-foot baleen whale that was discovered in Laguna Niguel when we were constructing the 73 toll road in 1993. It's on permanent display there at Clark Park. I'll just highlight quick some of the events we've taken place in this past year since January. We did 2 of the kids fishing derby with Supervisor Chafee in Brea and Placentia, and Chair Taylor, of course, in that cool jacket and hat at the Swallows Day Parade on a very wet day in March.
Soaking wet, yeah,
Very
not
wet,
good.
yes. We always do the Dana Point Festival of Wells each March, about 50,000 people, a 2 or 3 day event there. Appreciate Director Frost and Foley for stopping by our booth. We also always enjoy doing the Irvine Global Village, always 20, 30,000 people at that event in the Great Park each year. I did that photo on the right just to show you the line of the people to see the fossils. Participate in a few car shows every year, do the Dana Point one, always a lot of fun, lots of people. That's Director Federico and I giving the award. The Toll Roads always gives out the People's Choice Award for Best Car every year. We also did car shows at the Yorba Days and Laguna Hills Car Show. Chair Heft always stops by for a while. We always partner with our cities and our chambers on a lot of their events. We did the Taste of Yorba Linda with Director Hong, Laguna Niguel Sea Country Festival, and the Laguna Hills Heritage Day. Again, Chair Heft stopped by for a while. For the 3rd year in a row, we did the Orange May Parade. This year they did a Star Wars theme, so our talented graphics team did this cool banner, Star Wars theme, and Melissa Massey, our very talented, she also does the voiceovers for TCA Video. She was the parade announcer. We did the Tustin Tiller Days in October, and I had to post that cool picture with you, Director Schnell, of that hot ride. We did the Rancho Family Fest with Director Bill stopping by. It's always a fun event. We always do the Newport Beach Sandcastle Contest. Thank you, Director Grant, for stopping by. There she is holding the fossil of a dire wolf up there. Yes, that's right. That's why we took that picture. We did the Anaheim Chamber Golf and Business Expo. A lot of people went to that. And then with Vice Chair Kelly, we attended the Mission Viejo Chamber Women in Business. Summer concerts are a great way to do outreach with people. Very captive audience, always 2,000 to 4,000 people at all those concerts. We had a fun time in Costa Mesa with Director Stevens. There he is holding a 10,000-year-old mammoth tooth, working our booth for a while, and Director Bill with us there at the summer concerts in Rancho. Chair Taylor at the San Juan Summer Nights, we do 4 of those, June through September. I just showed a picture of the crowd there to show how many people attend those popular events. And special thanks to Director Panaloza. He actually worked our booth for a while in Santa Ana at the concerts. A lot of fun there. People were really having a good time with us. We support our member cities by always attending the State of the City and county events. Had a great time. Couldn't get enough room to do pictures of them all because we do try to attend them all. Here's just a few with Director Kahn, Voights, and Vice Chair Kelly, and had a really good time at the State of the County with Directors Foley and Wagner. They always give a fun and spirited update. Each year we do some environmental themed events. Had a good time, and thank you, Director Connors, for working with me at the Laguna Woods Earth Day. I really enjoyed that. We had 2 very popular spring tours this year at 2 of our mitigation sites in May and June. Very popular. We're going to do that again next year. And we did the 10th anniversary of the Festival of Butterflies in San Juan, a huge environmental event. Gets about 5,000 to 10,000 people, and our own Dr. Doug Faramenga was the keynote speaker at that day, and he just does a fantastic job. If you haven't heard him, he's great. A couple of months ago, we did Supervisor Foley's senior outreach event called the Senior Summit. And that nice lady there at the bottom, she said, make sure you post a picture of me and tell them that we appreciate that the Toll Roads remembers the senior community in their outreach. So I told her I would do that. We expanded our outreach this year to the 4th District, and we did some concerts in Placentia and their summer concert in the park, and also their Heritage Day, as well as the fishing derbies that I mentioned. We have an active speakers bureau. You always see us at local Rotaries, Kiwanis, Lions, Exchange Clubs. At the bottom there, we just gave a presentation to the WTS chapter, student chapter at Cal Poly Pomona, which was a lot of fun. And on the right there, you know, when you got to give a presentation at an IHOP for the or for the Rotary, you can't always bring a PowerPoint, so you got to be creative and talk from a chair with your props. We always do some education events, which are fun. We did the Les Miller Outstanding Student Awards with Director Stevens. Taste of Aliso Niguel, we always have a booth of that, lots of people. That benefits the Aliso Niguel High School. And we also were partnered with the Newport Beach Chamber on their scholarship awards. And we also did the Santa Ana OC Influencers for Good, just didn't have any more room for photos. And we wrapped up the year with some really fun events, Tustin Dino Dash, great fit for the fossils. Great picture of Director Voits there at the Elf Yourself 5K in Lake Forest. And just last Sunday, we did the orange tree lighting. Talked to hundreds of people there, which was really a lot of fun, beautiful event. Busy year for us. We engaged 240,000 community members at 48 events. We gave 165 TCA updates and presentations. That's chamber meetings, government affairs committees, whenever we're at a Corona or water, Kiwanis or Rotary. We had a busy year. I do want to mention the staff report reflects our outreach numbers of 39 events, but that was for my presentation in September of the External Affairs Committee, so this is an updated slide because we've been busy since September. Got a busy year ahead of us, lots of stuff already in the works. And I just want to close with thanking each and every one of you because all of you have visited us at our booths, and we want to thank you for your support in our outreach efforts, and I'll be happy to take any questions, comments.
Thank you, Jeff. Director Grant.
Thank you. That was, Jeff, it was an incredible report. I know you don't have a team of thousands, and that seems like
we do what we can, that's for sure.
a remarkable amount of community engagement that you accomplish each year. So the only one thing that I would say from my perspective of dealing with people in the community that I think you work on that could be fairly more robust is the idea with the sticker versus switchable transponders, that I think that there's a lot of confusion in the community about that. And so I would look forward to seeing more of that coming up. Anytime I talk to somebody in the community about that, their eyes kind of flutter like, really? Yeah, so.
Thank you for your comment. And we do have a nice fact sheet there at our booth that details the differences between the two.
Otherwise, bravo, because that is an incredible amount of community engagement. I know that's only a fraction of what you do, so thank you.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Kelly.
Yes, I just want to thank Mr. Bott as well. It just seems like you are everywhere. You also attended my mayor's roundtable event and gave a TCA update at that. And I think your presence, the presence of the team at our different city events really does make a difference out there with the public's perception about the TCA and the education it provides. The Fossils program was outstanding. I'm still getting comments from those teachers that you visited in Mission Viejo. So I just want to thank you, and as I said, it just seems like you're everywhere. So I don't know how you do it, but we appreciate all of your efforts.
A secret clone, I think. So.
I think a clone, that's it, yes, thank you.
Have a great team, too, with Diana. So.
Thank you. Yes, Diana's there also.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none?
Yeah,
then-
I
Oh.
actually just say thank you, Jeff, for being everywhere. I think you're chasing after me and after seeing all the pictures, I thought you were only in our city, so nice to see you everywhere.
Well, that
so.
wouldn't be fair.
Thank you, because every time I turn around, you guys are always around, so thank you.
Thank you, Director Voits, and Jeff, thank you. Incredible job that you do and your
Thanks, Chair
team.
Taylor.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you. Great report. And now we'll go on to our, any other public comments, Madam Clerk?
There are no public comments.
Okay. We'll go on to our Chief Executive Officer's report. CEO Chamberlain.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. I want to start off by expressing my appreciation for Chair Heft and Director Kahn for your unwavering support of TCA initiatives, your support of staff, your incredible leadership in regional mobility. It goes sometimes unnoticed by the public, but certainly your team here appreciates your leadership, and you've made your mark on Orange County residents for many years to come, so I appreciate you and thank you for your efforts there. Changing gears, this month TCA will release our request for information for a toll plaza reuse plan. We're expecting to release that on December 23rd. As you know, TCA has toll plazas which are no longer in use due to our conversion to all electronic tolling in 2014. The toll plaza reuse request for information is part of the board's approved strategic plan initiatives to explore concepts for the underutilization of those toll plazas. In addition to posting the RFI on multiple bid engine platforms, TCA will work with various stakeholders to promote the RFI to ensure that we cast a very wide net for submissions. Depending on the concepts we receive, we may work with Caltrans to discuss viability with potential reuses and potentially move those items through their respective boards of directors, depending on what we hear from Caltrans and from those proposing. Before I conclude with a highlight video for 2024, I do want to take some time to wish all of you a very happy holiday season. It's a time for me that I spend with friends and family and enjoy the accomplishments of the year, but just be present in the moment and to celebrate certain holidays that fall. And however you choose to celebrate during the holidays, I want to wish you a very safe and happy holiday season, and can't wait to see all of you back smiling in January. So without any further ado, I'd like to queue up real quickly the board highlight videos for 2024.
The Transportation Corridor Agencies, operators of the toll roads, have been working hard this year to enhance regional mobility for drivers. We've continued to build on our strong finances, advanced our capital improvement plan, reaffirmed our environmental commitment, and promoted community engagement, to name a few. Starting in January, we accomplished an early bond paydown of $60 million. The bonds were paid off with cash reserves, saving roughly $54 million in interest payments. This forward-thinking program led Fitch Ratings to upgrade the Foothill Eastern Transportation Corridor Agency's bond ratings in March. Fitch's decision underscores TCA's financial strength that provides the toll roads with stability and strong operations. April held the first cattle grazing at Live Oak Plaza since the official adoption of the program in March. Cattle grazing helps minimize wildfire risk and improves the quality of biodiversity of the natural areas we protect. The fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan was adopted in April. The plan includes 3 key projects: the 241-91 Express Connector, State Route 73 Catalina improvements, and State Route 241 Loma improvements. In May, we brought back our highly anticipated Spring Tours series. These exclusive tours allow the public a once-a-year opportunity to explore the natural beauty of protected land set aside with the construction of the toll roads. In June, the boards of directors approved the fiscal year 2025 budgets. The budgets maintain the agency's history of cost containment, incorporate activities and policies from the board's approved strategic plan, and meet the financial responsibility to bondholders. TCA is leveraging our award-winning back office system in a unique partnership with the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority as their account and toll processing partner. July marked the opening of the Toll Road San Bernardino Customer Service Walk-in Center in preparation of the opening of SB Express lanes on I-10. Customers from both the toll roads and SB Express lanes are able to access customer support at the new location. In August, the County of Orange approved the Saddle Club Preservation Project Site Use Plan and Development Project. The plan balances habitat conservation, wildlife movement, and public recreational use, including hiking, biking, and horseback riding. TCA made great progress on completing activities listed in the key areas of focus in our strategic plan. With this progress, the boards of directors approved updates to the plan in September to better align with the agency's current goals, objectives, and activities. In October, we released a call for projects for the Habitat Conservation Fund grant opportunity in partnership with the Save San Onofre Coalition. The goal of the fund is to preserve and restore areas in Orange County through land acquisitions, habitat restoration, and other environmentally beneficial projects. In November, the boards approved an agreement with North Texas Tollway Authority to implement one-way interoperability for TCA account holders, taking the first steps towards national interoperability. With this agreement, TCA will become the first tolling agency in California to establish interoperability beyond the state's borders. Throughout the year, you may have met with our community engagement team at events throughout Orange County. Our team attended events where we helped customers and drivers learn about Fast Track, driving the toll roads, our environmental initiatives, and more. It was a year of recognition for TCA, having earned 3 prestigious industry awards. The California Transportation Foundation recognized both the Customer Service Back Office Solution and cattle grazing programs at their annual awards gala. And the Orange County Taxpayer Association spotlighted TCA's early bond paydown program with a Rose Award. The Transportation Corridor Agencies strive to implement programs that drive the region toward a better tomorrow. With every innovation, we're shaping a transportation system that promotes enhanced mobility, safety, and environmental quality for Orange County and beyond. As we travel into the new year, we wish our drivers safe and smooth rides into 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Chamberlain. Well done. Great, great video. And now we'll go on to board chair reports. Chair Heft.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Good morning, everyone. 2 nights ago, I stepped down after 8 years on the Laguna Hills City Council due to term limits. I can't believe that much time has gone by, and I'm realizing I put pretty much almost that same amount of time into the TCA as well. It was funny because at the council meeting, my own mother said, "I can't believe you did all that." I thought, okay, where have you been, Mom, for the last 8 years? I remember going through my TCA orientation as an alternate back in 2017, and I was a freshman councilwoman and pretty much drinking from the proverbial fire hose, as we all have, on a daily basis, just to get up to speed. But I was determined to understand the inner workings of the TCA better, and I scheduled meetings with a number of staff members who gave me all the information I needed. I was immediately impressed with the level of professionalism and class that I have seen in the TCA staff. They are also experts in their fields, and with Ryan Chamberlain as our new CEO at the helm, the TCA is in good hands. Serving as an alternate, director, committee chair, vice chair, and now chair has given me a fresh new appreciation of how well run this organization is, truly a model, and how a public agency should be managed. It also made me realize the central role that TCA plays when it comes to regional mobility. Just imagine how bad traffic conditions would be in Orange County if TCA had never been created. A few years ago, I remember hearing the story of how the toll roads came to be from Kurt Pringle, if you remember that presentation. He talked about our history, and there are a lot of misconceptions and frankly, completely wrong information concerning the toll roads. And I've made a point to tell that same story to many of my constituents and even some of my fellow colleagues over the years. Back in the mid-1980s, Orange County was growing like crazy. Homes were being built, and we needed a way to pay for all the infrastructure that would be needed to sustain this growing population. Unfortunately, the county did not have the funds, and so a daring, but what turned out to be a brilliant idea was born to use private funding in the form of bonds instead of public funding as had been traditionally done. Attempting something so bold as this was definitely a risk, as there had been other similar attempts in other areas of the country that had failed during the initial years. Things were tough, but the TCA was able to truly weather the storms of some very scary financial times, and as I would like to say, has more than paid their dues to now be in a position where we enjoy solid bond ratings and are in such a strong financial position that we are even able to single-handedly pay for a huge $428 million project that will benefit millions of drivers, such as the future 241-91 flyover exchange. One of the other areas I really like to highlight, and I think it was mentioned in the video as well, is that as a bipartisan board, we have strongly come together in agreement to pay down our debt by almost $1.4 billion. We were able to accomplish this in 4 steps. In July 2022, we had an early paydown of $125 million bond principal, which saved $180 million in interest. In February, March of 2023, early paydown of $150.8 million in bond principal happened through open market bond buyback, which saved us $150 million in interest. In January 2024, an early paydown of $60 million in bond principal saved $54 million in interest. And then finally, recent bond refundings replaced higher interest rate bonds with lower interest rate bonds for $700 million savings. And this was all without extending bond maturity dates. You should all pat yourselves on the backs. Another thing I really enjoyed during these past 7 years was the opportunity to get to know my fellow directors, be it city council members, county supervisors, or ex officio members, and develop great relationships and friendships. And I will never forget the great time we had hiking together in the wilderness areas, driving a rugged four-wheel SUV. I felt like I was on a safari in Africa, all over tarnation to find those darn cows. Or traveling to Sacramento to witness TCA being honored by the California Transportation Foundation with not one, but 2 beautiful awards. And while we were in the business of transportation, I really appreciate that we are also in the business of protecting our environment, and that includes the flora and the fauna around us. Because of the forward thinking of our staff, we have been able to build wildlife crossing areas that both protect animals and humans off the 241, and I'm very proud of that. In addition, did I tell you that I love, love, love cows, and I love our grazing cattle program, our cattle grazing program, and I hope it continues for many years to come with those 45 or so beautiful cattle that we can safely rely on to naturally clean up the land. In closing, I just want to let you know how much I've appreciated your support and confidence in me as your chair of San Joaquin Hills this year, and for 7 amazing years on this board. It has truly been an honor and a pleasure to serve, and I will treasure that for many years to come. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Chair Heft. And Director Khan, did you want to say a few words?
Thank you. Just a quick thank you to both our chairs, vice chairs, our directors, CEO Ryan Chamberlain, our amazing TCA staff. It's been a great opportunity to be able to work at TCA and really look at the importance of toll roads in our communities. So I just wanted to thank all of you and then look forward to seeing you around in the community.
Thank you very much for your service. And then in my final report, this will be my final meeting sitting in the chair position. I won't be here in January, so I'm going to be in Germany visiting my daughter and her husband who's in the Army over there. So I'll miss the next meeting where we change over chairs. But I just wanted to thank my colleagues for the intelligent leadership that you've all provided and the help in making this job fairly easy. And I just want to thank the staff, incredible staff. You guys are just wonderful to work with and so helpful. And our CEO, Ryan Chamberlain, has just done an incredible job. So just thank you very much. And in my last request, I would just say that when it comes to the next chair election, I would strongly support my colleagues, Vice Chair Kelly and Vice Chair Penaloza. They've been very active in the process this last couple of years, and they're really ready to step up. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the San Joaquin Hills Transportation Corridor Agency Board of Directors and the Foothill Eastern Transportation Board of Corridor Agency Directors will be held on Thursday, January 9th at 9:30 a.m. at TCA offices. And now we have our annual luncheon, which will be held in the committee room at 11:30. We're a little past that, so thank you very much. And this meeting is adjourned.